Well, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. Streaming to you from the East Coast to the left coast and around the world on UCY.tv. This is All Things Apocalyptic with your host, me, G. Michael Hopf. Well, how's everybody doing out there? This is my first show on UCY. I'm very honored to be here. So I first wanted to talk and give a couple shouts out to everybody. First is to Jules. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Secondly, I wanted to talk about what All Things Apocalyptic is. On this show, we're going to be discussing literally what the title is, and that is everything that is apocalyptic. We're not going to be wearing a lot of our tinfoil hats. We're not going to be talking about alien abductions. If you want to listen to Alien Apocalypse and Alien Abductions, you can go and listen to Coast AM with George Norrie. He's got a great show. But otherwise, we're going to talk about everything there is to do with the apocalypse. I have a great guest tonight. She is an author like myself. She also writes post-apocalyptic. She is based in Indianapolis, and her name is Annie Burdell. She's a self-proclaimed advocate of educating women in the art of personal protection and self-reliance. She is an aspiring writer, and her debut novel will be here coming probably in the next few weeks, I believe, but she'll give more details on that. She has a passion for firearms, herbal medicine, knives, slingshots, home canning, Kali street fighting, Kempo karate, and furry animals. Furry animals, there you go. I wonder if she eats them. Anyway, her new book, Alpha Farm, will be out soon. And Annie, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Great. Well, it's really, really nice to have you on my show, on All Things Apocalyptic. This is the debut show. So why don't you tell us, I kind of ran through your very impressive bio here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and about Alpha Farm, your debut novel coming out?
Well, first, congratulations on your new show, and I look forward to it. I did see in the chat room somebody mentioned about aliens, so we'll see how that goes for you. But I think you're going to do an awesome job, and I just want to congratulate you on this. So, Alpha Farm. I love post-apocalyptic books, and I think that those people that hang out in the preparedness world, and I'm not talking about doomsday preppers, I'm talking about survivalists and people in general that just try to be ready for all things. There was a real lack of a strong female lead, so I said, shoot, let's just write something. And that's kind of what I did. And some of it, I know a lot of strong women. There are quite a few in my life, here and there. So kind of used them for inspiration. And came up with some real kick-ass characters in the book. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, a lot of listeners out there. I had the privilege of reading an advanced copy of the book, and I can tell you, I'm a writer myself, as many of you know, and those that don't know, I have my own best-selling post-apocalyptic series that's out there. It's called The New World. I've got 3 Amazon best-selling books that are out there right now. You can find them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you go, or jump on my website at gmichaelhopf.com to check them out. But being a writer myself of this genre, when I read your book, I was really, really impressed. And I'm happy to see that there are female authors out there now entering into this genre, because it's definitely been one that's been dominated by men. And so it's really nice to see you out there. And I do agree with you. I've actually was accused of having weaker female characters in my first book. I definitely, changed that. But your main protagonist is Emma. Can you tell me a little bit about her? Tell the listeners.
Emma is she's middle-aged, so she's not a youngin' at all. She's lived a full life. She had a thriving business life career, if you would say, high stress, and decided that with the things going on out there in the world that she wanted to move back home. So she ended up going back to her family farm that she was used to. She knew. She used to coon hunt with her dad on, and it's always in her blood. I think all of us understand that home is always going to be home. So she ends up leaving her career, and she takes her husband, and who's also in the book, and moves back to Ohio, and forms a self-sustaining farm there. And it goes into a little bit. The first book, Alpha Farm, the beginning, is really the beginning of the series. And it's kind of where I brought a lot of the characters in and introduced them. So as the series progresses, you'll get to know each one of them. And my goal is for women out there, because like you said, again, there's not a lot of strong female leads out there in this kind of genre that women can identify to. I know, I love your books. I've read every single one of them and have loaned them out to people. Even my children's friends, my daughter's friends love your books. And but there's still, I know there was one author in the book, he left his wife at home and went off to save the world on his own, and things like that. But there's nothing really that women can identify to in a lot of stuff out there. So that's what I wanted to grab onto, because I feel strongly that you can, and in your books are a prime example of this, glean stuff out of there, information, knowledge that you can use in your own preparedness lifestyle, and gives you a process to think about, maybe this really could happen. Maybe there's something here that I need to think about. And women don't have a lot of that out there. It's usually put on the men's shoulders to take care of the family. But what happens if there's no male in your family? So that's kind of the hot button I wanted to hit upon.
Yeah, and you definitely did that. Do you think there's anything else? I know when reading it, there's a lot of very useful information for preppers and survivalists, and people actually, really, as a matter of fact, that aren't, can get from it. That was done deliberately, correct?
Yes, it was. It's not a technical manual per se, but I wanted it to give someone that might be new into this, because I want it to jump over those boundary lines. What in the preparedness world, the biggest thing is doomsday preppers. And anyone in that understands that they're just a bunch of kooks for the most part. So I wanted to give somebody with book one a solid foundation on maybe some of the things they should be doing just in general. We had an incident in Toledo, Ohio this past week where over 400,000 residents went to work and were told they could not drink the water, not even boil it, because of the bacteria in Lake Erie, where they got it from. How many people were without water? They were price gouging, $14.99 a case. There was no way they could get water without driving to Michigan, some of them. So, I think everyone can benefit from having a few basics in the house, and I think that's important to get out there. So I did insert some of that, but there's also a storyline that goes along with it.
So let's dive into the apocalyptic part of it. As I hope I don't give too many spoilers away, but you kind of addressed it where there's kind of a slow deterioration of things, primarily an economic standpoint, which in a lot of ways is apocalyptic. Because I define the apocalypse doesn't have to be like a huge asteroid hitting the Earth and it just blows into a million pieces. I define the apocalypse as when things change, our world changes, and it's not what it used to be. And now you kind of have to survive in this new world. And there can be varying different degrees of survival. What I found interesting was you had this, we start the story with the characters, and, life in America is already tough, and it's deteriorating. And then later on in the book, there's a much larger event that occurs. Was there a reason why you started out that way? Do you think, is this your vision of how things will go? It's
a possibility, and ending the book pretty much begins the scenario of how everything really starts to degrade. But I think at the beginning of the book, I started it off slow because I want people to identify with what's going on out there. The beginning of the book is pretty much, if you look out your window, what you see. So it's not like you said. I wanted it to be realistic so people could identify with it. And I think, I know some people think that, the red and blue planet are going to merge and crash into the Earth, or aliens are going to take over or whatever. But majority of the people see that the economy is failing, crime is increasing, food is it's getting so expensive because of the drought and various reasons out there. And it's, they see that stuff. That's reality for a lot of people. And that's what I wanted to hit upon first.
Well, yeah, and you definitely did that. And I think it's important. What I also liked about it is there's kind of this disinterested government in a lot of ways.
Oh, kind of like we have now?
Yeah, no, there definitely was a lot of, without a doubt, there's a lot of contemporary tones that are there.
Yeah.
I saw it, and that's why I think people can grasp at it. And I think people, and what I like about it too is that it crosses over. There's not an overt political message in the book, so to speak, because I think a lot of people can connect with where we're seeing the cost of living is increasing. In your book, obviously, it's like hyperinflation's happened, and where meat is extremely expensive, and all the basic necessities of life are really, really, really pricey. So, interesting take that you think that. And by the way, that's very realistic, without a doubt. A lot of times I write. I start my book with a really massive event that occurs, and I do it because I just want to create a lot of chaos, and I wanted just things to go, to hell in a handbasket, really quickly. But in a lot of ways, when I've actually thought myself about how things might come to an end, and I do believe, and sometimes people think, preppers or survivalists or people that think the way that we do, that we're always doomsayers, or we're always going to that we're always looking at things in a gloomy way, and that we're probably going to be wrong, that people have been predicting the end of time all the time. But I think history shows that we can't be the top dog. I think history shows that we are heading towards some kind of a collapse, and I think that people feel that out there. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, hugely. I see a lot of almost they're staring off into space. They see something going on, but they can't quite put their finger on it. But then talking to people, and especially the ones that decide to step off the ledge and go down the rabbit trail, and pretty much, there's the next layer of, no, that really can't be happening here. And then reality hits them between the eyes, and they're in tears because they realize this country that we live in now is not not their expectation they had growing up. A lot of people assumed that it was always going to be the same way. We were going to have, everything that we have always wanted, and we were going to have that American dream, and we were going to move forward from there. And especially in the last few years, we've seen that degrade so fast that it's taken their breath away. And a lot of people go completely in denial and stick their head further in the sand, or they actually, like I said, take that step, and it's a rude awakening for a lot of people. More and more, it seems like every day, people are waking up to the fact. Is it fast enough? I don't know. It's hard to tell how much time we have left before, everything falls apart. But watching the news nowadays, it's concerning.
Yeah, I sense an anxiety out there everywhere and across all kinds of the political spectrum. I think people just feel uneasy.
They do, and they don't know what it is. A lot of them don't know what it is, but they still feel, something's wrong.
Yeah, and I think for them to take the steps to have a little bit more stuff, or just to prepare a little bit, kind of acknowledges that. I think that's what you're touching on. It kind of acknowledges then that it's reality. And then I think then that really scares the hell out of them. Because then all of a sudden, if they're all of a sudden now making some preparation, that means then they're acknowledging that their life could drastically change. And then what? And then what happens?
But the point of the book, though, is we get that, but how many women specifically out there have someone that they could look to for getting them to the next level, getting them to open up and wake up? We've seen cases with downgrade situations where women have been separated from any male member of their family who they've always thought that they could rely upon to take care of them. So they've never stepped out and said, well, you know what? I need to learn how to protect myself. I need to learn how to take care of myself. They need to learn how to be strong within themselves and then form a relationship. And we don't have that anymore. Or in some cases, we never did. So I think it's important for women to step up and say, it's okay if you learn how to shoot a firearm. There's nothing wrong with it. And, it's always called, Colt was the great equalizer. But you're seeing, I live in Indianapolis, more and more every day, the break-ins of homes when it's just women alone at home. There was a case, a landscaper here on the north side of town had gone to work, had an employee that decided, he didn't feel like going to work half the time, so the guy fired him. The guy that got fired got pissed off and went to the guy's house and, took his wife and his daughter into the basement and promptly killed them with a brick. These women had no way to defend themselves. And more women need to step up and speak out and say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's not going to make you less of a female to learn how to defend yourself. And I think that's very important.
No, no, you're absolutely right. And I know I've had conversations with other people about that. The fact that in any kind of an apocalyptic event or any kind of post-grid event, women are going to be at a disadvantage in some ways.
They do have the power of sex, which we all know it's going to go back to. If you want to get something and something like that,
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, women have resources or assets, maybe you could say, you put it that way, that they can leverage. But when you're talking about physically confronting a man, there are some disadvantages. For the most part, I know sometimes there'll be some women that might get pissed off about that comment, but you really only see these superhero type women throwing big men around only in movies. Historically, men just have much larger frames. They can pack on more meat, have more muscle. They're just going to be typically stronger. Not that a woman can't have a skill set, but still, when a guy is 70 pounds, 100 pounds greater than you are, it's going to be a challenge, and that's why I think what you're doing is a smart thing. As far as you in your bio, you are an advocate for educating women. And I think that's important because any of these type of apocalyptic events could be just something more of a regional thing. It doesn't have to be this huge world event or huge national event. It could be a Katrina. It could be a Sandy. It could be a massive earthquake in Southern California. And now you're stuck, and law enforcement's going to be too busy taking care of whatever they're going to be taking care of, and you have to take care of yourself. And I think it's very, very important for women to have a skill set. There's this, you might have seen it. It's been floating around on Facebook and everywhere else of this anti-gun video that shows the guy coming in the house and the woman is on the phone. And she mentions to the dispatch that she has a restraining order against her ex-husband and he's got a gun. And the thing is where it was trying to support kind of banning firearms or more regulations or more gun control. It actually backfired on this group. I think it was the Bloomberg group that's out there promoting gun control. It actually backfired because most women that watch it was like, I'm going to have a gun. If someone comes in, I'm going to shoot them. I think they even discussed it. I think it was like The View, that show on ABC or something, that woman's talk show. And a majority of the women on the show were saying, no, I'd have a gun. That's the way to protect myself. Relying on...
And it's not always the way. And that's where we usually tend to lead to first. But so this, and I did not see this, but this Bloomberg group was advocating getting a restraining order to protect yourself? Yeah.
Essentially, that we should have guns because because guns can be used in domestic violence incidents. And it showed this woman. Yeah, it showed this the ex broke into the house, went for the kid. She was on the phone with the police. I'll put it up on the chat room so people can take a look at it.
Okay.
But it's actually quite hilarious because it actually backfired on them. And women who watched it was like, "You're saying I should be a victim." And what's interesting is, then there was somebody who was claiming that. I'll call the police because I don't want guns in my house because I have children in the house. But here's the thing: what's the irony of it is that you're calling the police and they're going to come to your house with guns. So I don't understand the whole concept. Anyway, I'm very pro-gun. I'm very much a believer in having every tool at our disposal to protect our families in the event that an apocalyptic type incident occur. So no one could ever talk me away from that. And I always applaud when women want to go out there and refuse to be victims, because they need that skill set just as much as any man does.
Well, and I agree with that. And I grew up on a farm, was not subjected to handguns as much as rifles and shotguns. Got married before I graduated from high school. And I will personally tell you, and any woman that's listening to this right now, that my first ex-husband, I had 3 restraining orders against. And all they are is a piece of paper. And it's your responsibility to step up and protect yourself, because all you're dealing with someone with the mentality to the point that you feel that you have to get a restraining order against has tunnel vision, and they don't care about a piece of paper that you might be waving in their face saying, ha ha ha, you can't bother me. It's your responsibility, ladies, to step up and protect yourself. Now, it does not mean, like I said, I'm all for guns, don't get me wrong, but do you have to go to that route if you're uncomfortable? No, because you're probably going to end up hurting yourself or someone else that you love if you don't have the proper training for it. But there are plenty of other avenues that you can take to learn self-defense. So, interesting. I want to check that out that you have.
Yeah, I just posted it on the chat room. Everyone should take a look at it. I mean, I'm sure some people have seen it, but it's quite comical. It just, again, it goes against. It's just, there is, and that's where when we were talking about people feeling an anxiety, but there's definitely a certain segment of society that doesn't think that they need to be prepared. It doesn't think that.
Well, they're also the ones that think the government's going to take care of them during any. Yeah. And even if it's not so much the big picture, but even we saw with Sandy that came through with the blizzard. People were expecting the government to take care of them, FEMA specifically, and if you go to the FEMA office and it was posted all over the news, they went home to be with their family, or they have to stop and think. In the tornadoes in Kansas and Nebraska and Oklahoma, these people also live with us, beside us, are part of our community, and they're dealing with the same stuff that we are. So if we can't get out our driveway, there's a good chance that they're not going to be able to get out and help you. So, you need to have a plan in place in order to take care of yourself until someone can get there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely it's going to happen, the scenario you depict in the book, where would you rate that?
I would say it's pretty close to a 10.
Yeah. It's economic downfall, economic deterioration. It's not quick. It's kind of putting the lobster in the cold water and turning up the heat slowly.
Yeah. Even with the other stuff towards the end of the book, and you'll see at the beginning of book 2 when it comes out, how it all kind of plays in together with what's going on in the news today. It's a very real possibility. I didn't want it to become, sci-fi to a degree, if you want to call it that.
I mean, there's no aliens?
No, I don't have aliens in the book. But I had a good theory for a book, and I'll have to discuss that with you offline one time. I think that you would find quite funny. But I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag.
Oh, come on.
No, there's no way.
Okay. Now, there. I don't want. I feel like I'm giving away some spoilers for the book. Oh, by the way, when is the book coming out?
Well, it probably would have been out by now if I did not have happy fingers when it comes to technology. So I made a couple blunders, and I am having the Kindle is ready to go, but the actual hard book itself I've had to send it back to the girl that designed the cover, Eloise, and she is reformatting it for me to another size because I royally screwed it up. So once I get that back from her, possibly this week, maybe into next, and get that all uploaded, we should be able to go live.
So like in a week, 2 weeks?
Within 2 weeks, I would say.
Okay. Great.
Definitely.
Great. Now, again, so I don't feel like I'm giving away too many spoilers, but the book is really good. Everyone out there is listening. It's really engaging. It's really educational. I think it has that perfect blend. And I think when people are writing apocalyptic, or even there's kind of like this new genre that's been, I hear it out there. It's called prepper fiction, survivalist type fiction. This definitely falls into it, and I think it has the right blend that people that are looking at preppers, survivalists are looking for. They're looking for entertainment, and you do that in the book without a doubt. It's gripping, and at the same time, I put the book down and I learned something, which is always important. So I think that's something that everyone listening wants in a lot of ways, again, but at the same time you do have to keep it entertaining, and people have to understand that it is a work of fiction, even though there's lots of things in there that could be coming true. I mean, it'd be unfortunate if it is, in 5 years a work of nonfiction, but for the most part, but you do have to make it. And how did you come around? How did you do that in your writing? How did you figure out the story to make sure that you had that perfect blend of entertainment/education in the book?
Oh, I have no friggin' clue on that. But what I will tell you...
Nice answer.
I'm going to be honest. Anyways, what I will tell you is, and you can find this on the back of the book cover anyways, so it's not like I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. Some of this will be new. But the farm that I actually grew up in Ohio, which is the farm that I had in my head as I was writing the book. So when you read about the farm that Emma's on, it's actually in my head pictured as that farm that I grew up on. But it was actually part of the Underground Railroad. And I talk about this in the book a little bit. And we had this spooky, scary downstairs with the big sandstones. And you get the willies when you walk down there, and the hair on the back of your neck will stand up. And we had the little secret alcoves in the attic that you had to go back through a closet to get to. And you could go back there, and there's, and we're not the first ones that found it, so don't get me wrong there. But there are other people that had lived in there prior to us that had the had posters up in there, so they obviously knew it was back there. But it was kind of cool. And the one thing that I wanted to approach, and it's because a lot of people think about, we're going to bug in, we're going to bug out if something happens. We all need to form a community. But I've always had this thought in the back of my head that if something would happen and we had to bug out of our house and leave our home, and things had gotten that bad, that there was a movie out that I watched that I picked up a tagline. It said, "Movement is life," and it's pretty much how I feel. If we get to that point that we have to leave our homes for some reason, I don't think we're going to be able to stop. And I wanted to show a different side of that, because a lot of people, when they write their books, their fiction books, it's around a community here or something like that. Mine is spread out. So you see these alpha farms being built around the country, kind of like the Underground Railroad was utilized, back when, and how it's going to come into play to help people survive what's coming.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you have on your website, I put the website up for everyone to check out. The cover, by the way, is beautiful. They, Eloise did it. Yes. Great job. Tell me about the Dixon, the dog.
Dixon is actually my dog. He's a real live Great Pyrenees that I own. That was a lot of inspiration for me. I belong to him. I'm his human. When we sit and we chat and all of that, he'll sit there beside me and he'll put his paw up on me like he owns me. And it's just captivated my heart, and he's such a joy in my life. And so I put him in the book and put him on the cover. He was something that I kind of, my husband will make fun of me here, but I went to purchase a goat, and I came back with 2 and a dog. That kind of stuff happens all the time, right? And I couldn't resist him. I walked up to the farm, and he came bounding out to me as a puppy, and I've got him up on the website as a puppy, so you can see his cuteness, his little cotton ballness when he was a baby, and how he's grown up. But he is going to be very instrumental throughout the book in one way, shape, or form.
Okay. Is that so? When you referenced in your bio, you sent me the furry animals. So this is the problem your husband has to deal with. You bring in furry animals all the time.
Yeah, I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for something with a lot of fur on it, and I'm not talking about hairy men. So I bring them home all the time.
Although you do have the scene in the book where it talks about a guy. I'm not going to mention it. I'll let when the listeners ever read the book, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? What's that?
Really. No, not really.
You don't? You wrote it.
Well, I know, but I wrote a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. There's a guy where his pants are down.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind. I won't go there.
There was actually quite a few men in my book with their pants down, if you think about it.
I'll leave it at that. How many books do you have planned for? How many books do you have planned for the series, the Prepper Chicks series?
Total altogether, I would like to base. We'll have the main series, which will probably get into 4 or 5 books. But then I have plans to go back through each of the characters that you'll meet in the first book to talk about their story, because they have an interesting life all themselves. One of the characters is a prostitute. So how does she come into preparedness, and how does she play a role, and how did she get there? Because it's not someone that you would think that would be interested in that. There's 2 lesbians in the book. So, how did that come into play, and how does it change their life? So lots of interesting characters I'm hoping that people can relate to. Not that prostitutes and lesbians are the only ones in the book, because they're not. But how they all fit together and how they come into play, and, try and fix the world that's coming.
Talk to us about the antagonist. Is that again kind of a vision of how you see things to come? Is that the vision that you have, that the bad person is going to be how you depict it in the book?
Possibly, but I think by book 2 there's going to be another spin coming that, I'm always for, do you really know the person? And how much should you trust someone? So you'll see, book 1 has actually 2 that we end up with 1. So, but then 1 will continue on, and you will see how that person makes Emma's life pure misery. So we'll see what happens there. But I think it's something that a lot of people take pause with what's going on right now in the news, specifically with the professions of these 2 specifically in the book. So I think it's a very real possibility.
Yeah, I know. I picked right up on that as well. Where you and I think a lot alike that way. So, and it's what's kind of funny is I think a lot of apocalyptic writers do. We have this kind of vision on how things will look. I think like you do, and you showed in your book, and I do in mine. It's things will be violent, and I think things will get in my books. I have a super EMP that hits, and essentially everything turns to shit within days. It's just because that's how I think things will. Now, as you look now, because you've taken it and you've got your setting out in the country, you've got on an alpha farm. What happens to the people in cities? What in the event of in an apocalyptic type event, you kind of, I think, correctly lay out how things will be in the setting in the country. How do you think urban centers are going to fare?
Well, when towards the end of my book, when one of the main issues happens, you see my thought process with the bigger city. And then some of the alpha farms, the females involved with those, are spread out around the country, and you'll see more of that come into play also. But bigger cities, we've already seen supply lines that are being cut off. Anytime we have something going on now. So our trucks, my in-laws live in Brooklyn, New York. They're screwed pretty much, and it's something my husband and I have talked about. If we have a serious downgrade situation, there's no way we're getting in or they're getting out. So we have to deal with that reality. But I would consider, some people would probably pull together that make it out of there alive, depending on what scenario you're talking about. But once, even if they do survive, when they get into the realms of, the druggies and the alcoholics start to fall apart, and they can't get their hands on medical supplies, or they can't get their hands on food. And really, I was talking to a professor a couple years ago, and we were talking, what sustains a riot? Out of anything that goes on out there, what will sustain a riot? And really, it comes down to lack of food. And so you're going to see a nightmare if you even live reasonably close to a city, because once they deplete the resources within the city that has survived, they're going to come out to the suburbs. And if you're not ready for that, or even if you are, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to stand up to, especially if gangs start roaming, or, it's not going to be a pretty sight.
Yeah, no, I think the urban centers turn to chaos relatively quickly. And of course it depends on the type of event that happens.
Right.
Meaning that if there's really no governmental response, obviously things devolve into a complete lawless type scenario. But I was having this conversation with my wife the other day. There was a video I saw where it was like their power went out in Florida. I was out for a week in this one segment of Florida, and it showed where this one mobile home park where neighbors were going after a neighbor. There were fights, things got physical, and I showed it to her. She thought it was crazy because why can't people just get along? And I posted it on my Facebook page. And what's interesting is the differing comments. Most people kind of agreed, like I did. I was like, you take what happened there in Florida after a storm, and you put it on the national level. Hell's going to break loose. But then some people had comments, and they were saying, well, I was up in New York or New Jersey during Sandy, and we had, neighbors were helping neighbors. And in some regards, I think, and that's where, like in my series, it's not universal. And I think that's how it would be anyway. I think the major cities are done. There's just too many people. But the smaller towns are actually the ones that can be more manageable and handle a crisis. But it really depends on the leadership of whatever city officials are there, or any civilians, or whoever wants to step up and kind of take a leadership role. I think that things don't have to devolve. Things don't have to turn to chaos.
They have the ability to band together and make it out of it, but will they?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that, it's interesting. It's like, there was this old saying about money changes people. When it actually does that, whereas like I was watching an interview with Tom Clancy, and he was on Larry King, and Larry King, asked him, I was like, well, Tom, you're making a lot of money now. You've got these books out. And he goes, it hasn't changed me. He goes, it really hasn't changed you? And he goes, no. He goes, the thing is, the money doesn't change you. Money just highlights the person you already are. And I think that's what happens in chaos. I think when there's chaos or there's a lawless post-grid environment, you really then just become the person, whoever you are. If you're already a bad person that does bad things, you're really going to be bad, because now you don't have kind of the threat of the law enforcement or the threat of some kind of legal consequence to come down on you. But if you're a good person at heart, you're probably going to try to make sure that you can work with your neighbors and have cooperation and have things come together. So
I would agree.
I just don't think everyone just becomes bad. I think you're bad or you're good, and you're put in a situation that is amplified.
Have you, by chance, seen the movie The Purge?
No, I have not.
It kind of plays off of that, but it's a time period where there's no laws, a world without rule of law, and you're able to do whatever you want to without consequences. And I think it opens up the whole mindset that you just discussed. If you're a good person, you're going to go find good things to do. But if you're not, you're going to see it as an open ticket to fulfill any kind of sick, twisted fantasy that you might have had. I know in the preparedness community specifically, there's a set of people that, well, I'm not going to lump them all together because that wouldn't be fair, but I know that there are people that look forward to a downgrade situation because they think, well, I don't have to go to work, I don't have to deal with this, but they don't truly understand the ramifications of what they're wishing for, I think. That's my personal opinion, because I think in any kind of downgrade situation that it's going to be not what they expect. and that concerns me. And a lot of times they think it's just going to be hunky-dory. We're just going to kick back around the fire and cook, in cast iron over the open flame kind of scenario. And they don't understand the chaos that's coming if something would happen that they're not prepared for.
Yeah, I was being interviewed on a show about a year ago, and people called in, and the guy that called in was talking about how he actually was wishing for the scenario that's in my books to play out, and I tempered that. I was like, because he thinks the government is this evil cabal that's out to get us, and everyone in government's bad, and things along that line. And I'll be honest, I'm skeptical of government. I'm skeptical of anything that's large, whether it's a large corporation or it's a large, out-of-control government. I'm always skeptical of people that have lots of power and then lots of guns to back it up. But the thing is, he was wanting it because he thought that we needed to have a collapse so we can build everything back up. And I said, well, you're making a large assumption, and that is that you'll survive it.
Yeah.
And that your family will survive it. You're making this assumption. Secondly, if you're thinking there's going to be some kind of civil war or some kind of revolution that comes after a fall, that you'll be victorious. Like in my books, I create, because history shows that whenever you remove one powerful entity, it creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, all kinds of different players could come in. And you don't necessarily know, who's going to be good.
But they don't think it through because they think if it's a downgrade situation, they think all the good people are going to live. And they don't realize that, no, some of the bad people are going to also. It's not just going to wipe out and pick and choose who it's going to take with it. Good people and bad people are going to survive and not. So, and yeah, I completely agree with your assessment.
Yeah, do we need massive changes in Washington, D.C.? Absolutely. Do we need to clean house? Totally, but I think that we should try to find a means that doesn't necessarily, go to violence right away. And that's kind of what I was mentioning to him, because once things go violent, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. Once you open it up, it's on. Not to say that we should tolerate how things are going, and as if things continuously deteriorate and get worse, that we shouldn't stand up for ourselves. I'm not saying that. But sometimes there is ways of trying to, restore the republic that, I think we've kind of lost. But, people should temper that. I mean, you and I write about the apocalypse, and so actually let's talk about that. Why the apocalypse? Do you have a fascination with it?
Just a slight one. I mean, I think that, It's kind of neat to sit here and create your own little world and what could happen in it. Could I write one of those, what are they called? My husband refers to them as those, like 50 Shades of Grey. Could we do a 50 Shades of the post-apocalyptic? Probably, but would that help people? And that's the baseline for what I want to accomplish, is to wake people's minds up to what's the possibility and how to be ready for it. And I'm not talking just, condoms and sex toys. I'm talking about, water preps, food preps, self-protection, that kind of stuff.
So if there was, one thing that somebody could get out of your book or out of the series, what would it be?
Hey, maybe I need to take a real look at what's going on in the world and maybe put, just some stuff together here to protect my own family. More of a, what word am I looking for? Responsibility, which I think we lack nowadays, especially in the younger generation. They take no responsibility at all for their own actions or for their own protection, and I think we need to get back to that.
Okay. Yeah, I my books explore, where you give very good information, kind of more practical, technical stuff. I like to, I've always liked to explore human behavior in an event or in stressful situations. I like to put my characters into things that are morally challenging.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. And I'm looking forward to book number 4, by the way, because I'd like to see how a certain marriage itself plays out.
The marriage is fine.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, but it gives you, it gives you that take a pause and think about what would you do in this situation. And I think that's important. And I think people need to stop and think about those things nowadays.
No, exactly. The thing is that where we're heading right now is not a pretty place. And it's contingent on everybody to be prepared, to be self-reliant and self-sustainable, because we can't rely on a government that we can't trust, and we have to question what they're doing without a doubt. It's going to be an interesting, it's funny how the apocalyptic genre is really taking off. It's extremely popular. I mean, your timing in writing the book is perfect. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think a lot of people are looking for answers that they might not understand completely, and I think these type of books might start pushing them in the right direction, and it might resonate within their, in their spirit with that, and they might understand that, maybe this is a possibility, and with more and more stuff going, I mean, people's heads are spinning right now, just watching the news, between what's going on between Gaza and Israel, with Syria, now with the Ebola stuff going on. And I talked to some people this morning, and I said, just chill, take a deep breath, because I guarantee you today there will be multiple accounts of people all over the United States today having Ebola. And lo and behold, I get home from work, and there are multiple accounts in the news of people possibly having Ebola. And if you don't stay grounded, and being prepared gives you that kind of solid base to fall back upon, it can really wig a person out. And we're seeing that happening. Everybody right now is scared to death, and they don't know what to do.
So, speaking of the Ebola thing, do you? I think we're dealing with the Ebola Zaire. I think that's the one I think we're dealing with here. There's been some reports of it being possibly airborne. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, any kind of fluid that comes out of your body could eventually become airborne, and this thing has mutated already to begin with. I have questions, quite honestly, about the patent behind it, and Monsanto and Bill Gates and everyone else involved in it. Was it created to give them a patent to make more money off of sick people like they already do with the pharmaceutical company? You have to question it. You got to take a step back and say, maybe there's something going on here. Would not be the first time it's happened. Doubt if it's going to be the last time it happened. But I think being prepared in the fact that I can shelter in place, I'm using my air quotes there, as the government likes to call it, gives me more pause, and I don't freak out and become this crazy lunatic like some people out there that are going to happen. It's going to happen. So, back to making sure that you have everything in your house. If you do get quarantined in, can you survive for 3 weeks without leaving your house? I think it's important.
Yeah, without a doubt. Outside of what you have as kind of a scenario that's played out in your books, what's another type of an apocalyptic scenario that you see playing out that's realistic to you, that people should look out for?
Well, I think that, I don't know if it's full-fledged. I don't know how big you consider a post-apocalyptic, but I know that people, depending on, and it's going to depend on what part of the world you live in, but some people are already living through that kind of scenario with the amount of earthquakes. I mean, China just had a significant one that has killed hundreds of people over there, and we've seen worse. Look at Japan. Parts of Japan have already lived through it. You look over in India with the tsunami and things like that. These people have already lived through their own version of a post-apocalyptic world. What's going to take the world itself down, to me, is a combination between natural events and human greed. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And you have a time frame for that?
I would question whether it all wraps up within the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
And I'm talking about global. I'm not talking about individual. I think we can all agree that the United States is sliding down a very slippery slope right now, and we cannot sustain it for very much longer.
Very true. So Annie, tell everybody that's listening, where can they? Well, actually, so once this is there anything else exciting going on outside of Alpha Farm, book one?
Well, we're going to get that off and running to begin with, and then I've commissioned someone to do a comic book, a graphic novel, off of the book itself. So, been actively working on that, waiting for my book jacket to come back. And I've not touched any kind of technology whatsoever, so it should come along quite well as long as I keep my hands off of it. So, looking forward to that. And then, of course, the rest of the series will be rolling out here shortly, too.
Is there a game I've heard?
Oh, yes. Conflicted. We're going to get our own deck to play off of the book itself, if we can get some people motivated there. But hopefully that comes out here in the next few weeks also.
Is JD listening?
I hope so. It's hard to tell.
There's no time frame for your Conflicted game to come out?
No, not quite yet. But I know he'd sent off for the cover to his graphic artist to see what it would look like, and we're putting together a series of questions right now. And actually, in the book itself, Emma and her family go through some scenarios that they throw out there. So we can build off of that and get people to actually stop and pause and think, what would I do? Good.
Where's everyone going to be able to, when your book hits, where can everyone first find out about you and your book, and where can they get it when it is released?
Well, we have a website, and I'll punch that in the chat room right now. Hi, chat room peoples. It's annieburdell.com, and let me see if I can get this to work right. That's the website. We're on Facebook, and then I have some good friends because this is the Prepper Chicks series. I know some people over at Prepper Chicks who, from what I understand, will have a radio show here in about an hour and 6 minutes that will be helping get the promotion going. So the entire book series is called the Prepper Chicks series. This is Alpha Farm, the beginning. So imagine where this is going to go to. So you can find it on annieburdell.com. You can find it on prepperchicks.org, Facebook pages, and it will be for purchase to begin with on Kindle and hardcover up on Amazon. And trust me, the world will know when that happens.
Good. Will there be any kind of an audio version we should look forward as well? I know that was always a big format that, it's surprising a lot of people listen to books on audio. I mean, that's something should. I think that's something you should definitely do. Are you looking at doing that?
We are, but I want to find the right person to be able to take care of that for me, because I don't want just any voice out there talking about my little family that I have going on. So, there's all kinds of things in the works. And then I would like to, this is a goal that I haven't told anyone, so you guys will hear it for the first time, but I'd like to get the books out to gun clubs, gun shops around the country, because guys seem to drag their significant other in there. And this is something that they might be able to they can relate to, and be able to look at and see while they're in there. So, and then, I get to go visit gun clubs and go shooting while I'm traveling around delivering these books. So, see how that works?
Well, good. Well, everyone's going to have to make sure that they monitor your website at annieburdell.com, and they'll be able to, do you have any events coming up that you're going to be at?
Not specifically yet, but give me time. Let me get the book out first, and then we can go from there.
Good. Well, everybody, the book is amazing. It's really good. Again, I had the honor of writing the foreword for it, as well as
you did, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and also had the honor of getting a pre-released edition. It's really good. It's entertaining as well as informational. Definitely pick it up when it gets out. So keep monitoring Annie's Facebook page, the Prepper Chicks website, and annieburdell.com. Annie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure. And please feel free to share the book. If you guys are out there listening, share it with your significant others, your girlfriends, your moms. Great Christmas present coming up, too. So I would like to get it into as many female hands as possible. Not that I'm shutting the guys out, because there's still stuff in there for the guys. But it's something that I think can be very effective.
Oh no, yeah, no, without a doubt. If there's some guys out there thinking that they're not going to be entertained by it, and it's not a complete action adventure kind of book at the same time, they're wrong. It is. My series is out there, stands alone on itself, very much action adventure. Violent, shows I think a very accurate depiction of a post-apocalyptic world. Yours does the exact same thing. So
just from a female point of view.
From a female point of view, but it's very, very good, very good. And I encourage everyone to pick up a copy when it comes out. Annie, again, thank you so much for coming on, and hope to have you on the show again soon.
My pleasure, and best of luck for you with the show. I think there's a lot of good you can do with it, a lot of eyes that you can open up, and a lot of good information you can get out there to people.
Well, it's the first time I've ever done this, so we'll see how it all works out.
I think you're going to be fine.
we shall see, as they say. Again, Annie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
While I've still got a little bit of time, I wanted to give a couple shout-outs. I want to talk to Jules. Thank you again very much for having me for this time slot on UCY.tv. I really, really appreciate it. And for everyone that's listened tonight, thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope you found it entertaining, at least. And please come back again next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to have on another special guest. Best-selling author Angry American will be joining me. So if anyone's familiar with his Going Home or Survivalist series, you're definitely going to want to listen next week. And as always, and I want to give a shout out to the NSA because I know they're listening. So how you doing, guys? Anyway, thank you all again for listening. And what I always like to tell everybody, and that is to stay frosty. If you're not sure what stay frosty means, it means to always be prepared. So without a doubt, take care and stay frosty.
Buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh.